Welcome to Just Men, a life changing program that resonates hope as well as encouragement. The program that gives you information and inspiration for the glory of God. I'm your host, Jeff Tate, and thank you for joining Just Men. On today's program, we have a very special guest. This is his first time being on Just Men. Please welcome Billy Fann. Billy, welcome to Just
Thank you,
Men.
Jeff. It's an honor to be here.
Oh man, it is an honor for you to be on our program. And let me say on the onset, you add value to Just Men, and we're just grateful and thankful for you to just open up your book and open up your heart. And as we turn the pages of your life, I know that others are going to be inspired, going to be encouraged. And one of the greatest things that I know about you, my man, is that what you share today is going to allow others to breathe again.
That's
Many
what I
of
aim
them are
for.
holding on, and they're like, boy, there's no hope for me. But I know that they're going to find it through your story. So let's begin to take a step back and just share with me who is Billy Fann.
Billy Fann started out as a lost soul. He started out as this soulless body that was just wandering the earth for the place of meaning. He finally, later on down the road, started coming into these people that wanted him to lead a good life and showed him that he had meaning. And those people did not beat him down, but were not jealous over who he was, but rose him and wanted him to be better than what they have already accomplished.
Man.
And now I'm here as a God-fearing man, and I love God until the end of days, and there's nothing in this world that'll change that.
Wow, man, that's awesome. And that's a great place to start. Now I'm again to peel back and begin to start at the foundation. And many times in our lives, the word says that God chose us out of the furnace of our affliction. In other words, many times in our lives, we've been chosen in darkness and brought into light. So I want to talk a little bit about that process of darkness in your life, what you had to overcome from adolescence or childhood to adolescence, and what the things you were exposed to and the things you've seen, and how that had really put you on the wrong path, set a paradigm, set a mindset that put you on a pathway like Saul was on a wrong pathway. Talk a bit about your upbringing, your childhood.
Well, Jeff, I was brought up in a very, very dark environment. I was brought up in one of the worst ways that any child could be brought up in. No child should have to live through what I had lived through. And I know there's plenty of people out there now that have lived through what I have. My environment consisted of perviness, of beats, and I was consistently always being hollered out, talked down to. I was sexually abused. I was physically and mentally abused. I was drugged up. I was took to the doctors to get medication that I didn't even need, which messed my mind up even more than what it was. I was brainwashed to thinking all of this here was a normal life. I was brainwashed to thinking that this is what normal families do. And at ages, I can remember back to ages of 5 and 6, 7 and on up, that I was sexually abused by older women than me, by women that my father allowed to come into the house, which they did not have hardly any control over what they were doing. They were as well drug addicts, and for what they wanted, he would turn around and give them their supply for what they would do to me. It was like he got off on what he was seeing done to me, like he loved, and like it was intriguing to him. In some sort of twisted way, he loved what was being done to me. He is very psychotic, and this is my father we're talking about. My very own sperm donor, my father. And he is a very, very wicked man. And I believe the devil has marked himself onto his soul. And I believe that there is still a way out for him. I believe there is. That's the kind of man I am. As much as torture and as much hatred that I should have towards him and all the torture that I was put through with him, you would imagine I would wish him to die, but I don't. I still love him because he was my father and he put me in this world. He gave me, he was able to help produce me. And I don't want him to die. What I want for him, I want God to be able to touch him the way he has me. But if he cannot, I wish and I pray that he can get the help that he needs. I hope and pray that he can. Every day, I do. I really do. And I hope and pray that none of my brothers and sisters have to go through what I did. Because of what he put me through had turned me to the wrong life. I went as far as him making me allow my sisters and me thinking that it was alright to love one another, but beyond what a brother and sister should love. There was lust in between our relationships. There was sexuality in between our relationships, stuff that normal families would not normally do. And I now see that because God has touched me and he has turned me toward the right way. I've gotten out and I've seen normal families and I've seen what they do. And normal families do not do what I was raised to do. Families get out and they go to ball games, they go to parks, they go to theaters and watch movies as family on the weekends. They go to amusement rides and all this fun stuff. And me and my sisters, we were trapped at home, locked in our bedrooms, padlocks on the doors, abused, padlocks on the cabinets, on the pantry, on the refrigerator. We were fed once, twice a day. If we were lucky, we'd get fed twice a day. But it was a sandwich. I mean, what can a sandwich do for a child that it barely gets anything, you know? And he expects that a sandwich is supposed to fill a child up. But a sandwich is not. And don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for all those sandwiches that I got to receive. I am grateful for those sandwiches. That's because the Lord put them there for me to be able to eat. So he knew that I wouldn't starve to death. Because if I didn't get something, I would have starved to death. I was malnutrition all the way up until I was able to do something on my own, until I was able to take a stand as my own man. And I still am learning my ways. I'm still finding my way. But I know that I am on the right path because I know with the curves that have been thrown towards me in the past few months, I have been able to avoid them. I have not had to go through them. I've actually been able to avoid them. And I know the Lord is working that because there would be no other way that I could avoid these things without the Lord. I have avoided so much trouble and evil in these past 2 months than I have ever in my entire life. I have came closer to God than I have ever in my entire life in these past 2 months. Well, actually in the past 4 months. Because that's really when I started getting close to God. To be honest, Jeff, I was incarcerated for roughly 3 months. And the incarceration came from the sexual love in between me and my sister. I thought it was right to do. In my state of mind, I thought this was okay. But Lord, whenever the Lord finally showed me the right way, was I tore up about it. It makes me so upset to know that that's my sister and I was supposed to protect her. And I was not taught that. I was not taught that my sister was supposed to be protected by me. I was taught something totally different. I was kept from the people that would have showed me the right way. I wish that one person could have slipped in and showed me the right way. But there's also other ways that I wish that he didn't at the same time, because at the same time I could not be here to help these other men and women and children come forward with their stories. They can rise up against what is wrong. They can rise up against what is not right. They can rise up against what they have had to live through and make better of it. Because I know I am. Because of the grace of God, I am now looking forward to a great life. I'm actually, because of him, I've actually given a lot of thought to a project of my own that I want to try out. I want to try to start a Don't Follow Me program. And that's not by my choice. That's something that I feel that I need to do for myself. And not only will I be able to do it for myself, I'll be doing it for other people out there that is like me and in my situation. And there's many people that stand by my side till today, no matter what I've done. My own mother has not abandoned me. Thank the Lord, my sisters and brothers don't abandon me. They don't blame me for what happened, and I am very thankful for that. But that's still not going to take away the guilt of what I did. I'm not ashamed of what I did. I know most people in my shoes would be ashamed of what they did. I'm not ashamed. I turn around and I take it and I point it to a better usage. I point it to, this is going to make me strive harder to get down this great path that God has set out before me. See, in my mind, I think that God, before you were born, has a mindset out there, has a path set for you. You're destined to be somewhere. But at this point in time in life, nobody really knows what that is until it really hits you. And I honestly believe that my destination in life is very, very close to me right now. And I believe it. I believe that I'm arriving to my destination at any moment. And I can feel it. I can feel it getting too closer and closer every day. Because I feel like every day that I wake up in the mornings and I tell the Lord, thank you for allowing me to wake up. It's a blessing every day just to get up and be able to turn a doorknob. That is a blessing. Blessings come in so many ways, and it's not even funny how many ways they come in. They come in so many ways. The Lord just knowing His name is a blessing. It is. It really is. But back to where I was getting to, my destination in life is rising, and I know it is, because the Lord has touched me, and I feel like I'm the only one in the world that He has touched this way. I feel that. That's the way I feel. That could be somebody else's opinion, but I feel that way. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, He has. He told Jeremiah that while you was in your mother's womb, I knew you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you came forth from the mother's womb, I sanctified you. In other words, Jeremiah hadn't done anything. Our parents, though they birth us, they don't give us life.
Mm.
God gives you life. And the testament that you have, more than anything, is a witness that God is able. That He's able to do exceedingly abundantly above what we can ask or think, according to the power that's inside of you, that He placed inside of you at Calvary. It's amazing, Billy, to hear your story and to see you standing, man, to see you standing, not ensnared by the conditions that was placed on your mind, the conditions that pretty much brainwashed you into believing that you're something other than the child of God.
Mm-hmm.
But to show you the power of God's seed and God's word and the power of Jesus Christ and the blood is that He was able to even wash all of that you can still operate in forgiveness. I'm at awe at the level of forgiveness, the level of love. When you say God has touched you and only you in that way, it's so true. God has touched you with a greater anointing, a greater ability than you can even imagine. And it's going to go way beyond the story. It's going to point to His glory. You are the glory of God. You are his workmanship. You are the marvelous work of God. You were created in his image and in his likeness. That's who you are. And when you wake up, and as you woke up and said, wait a minute, that's not who I am. You're
Yes,
not
sir.
what you did. You're not what you do. You're not what you have. You're not what other people think of you. You are God's beloved. And when you recognize that, you become like the prodigal son who comes to himself and say, I will arise and go back to my father's house. And you went back to the father, the ultimate father's house. And what did he do? He started restoring you. He started repairing you. He started preparing you.
Yes,
And he's
sir.
preparing you for a greatness that's beyond your imagination. And so he brings others into your life to cultivate that love and cultivate that grace. The power of love is just written all over you, man. I'm telling you. I'm lost for words when it comes to just God's grace operating inside of you and just your humility to go beyond what had happened and to rise up to who you are in him, man. And so I had to say that because you are so
Thank you,
inspiring.
Jeff.
You are so inspiring to be able to touch those areas. And a lot of us have those areas, but we have not gotten the victory over them. The very point that you can talk about them lets you know that you got the victory. See, the victory
Yes,
is
sir.
inside of you. It was created, you said it's already done. It was done at Calvary. It was done at the cross. And it is the finished work. So we no longer have to live to the cross. We live from the cross.
Yes, sir.
And to live from the cross means that it's Christ in you, the hope of glory. So God says, now I'm choosing Billy. Billy is my beloved. He is holy. He's declaring you as holy no matter what you've done. He says, no, 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 no. It's nothing that Christ did not finish.
Yes,
When he
sir.
said it was done, it was done. And he finished that work in you. And for you to operate from the mind of Christ, that's the victory. The mind of Christ is the victory, not what we do and not what we go through. It's his mind. And that's what you're speaking forth to me. You're ministering to me. You're talking about ministry. You have ministered to me to be able to go to a depth, to trust God. Talk a little bit about where is that coming from? Where is this trust and where is this, especially, let's talk about the forgiveness first. Because forgiveness is so powerful because it's holding many people into bondage, into guilt. Talk about
Yes, sir.
forgiveness.
Uh, Forgiveness is something that is not given. It is something. See how I'm trying to explain this. Forgiveness is not something that is given by me. Forgiveness is given by the Lord and Jesus Himself, as you said. It is.
Yeah.
The Lord does not demand me to forgive. I forgive through the Lord. Because I found eventually, all my life, don't get me wrong, all my life, I lived up to hating Him. I lived up, and I just found out that here recently, when I was actually, the night of incarceration, within 3 to 4 weeks later, I started begging to God. I got down on my knees and I actually begged Him to help me. I didn't ask for His help. I begged for His help. I showed the Lord that night that I meant what I said. And I give up all the wickedness. And I give up whatever evil was inside of me to do what I did. But forgiveness, it is, you have to forgive somebody to forgive yourself. If you do not, you will eat yourself up alive. It will eat you out from the inside out. And people say that you cannot die from things like that. If you do let things like that get to you, you can die from that. At least to stress. The stress, if you build up so much, it can lead to anything. It can lead to suicidal thoughts. It can even lead to so much stress on the one person can lead up to heart attacks. It can lead up to strokes. I mean, it's dependent on the state of mind that you can look at things at, the state of mind that you're in. depends on how you're able to look at something and judge it or not. You know, how you're able to look at it and tell whether or not it is or isn't.
Mm.
And in my mind, he was worthy enough to be forgiven.
Wow. That's
And he
awesome.
always will be, because he's one of the Lord's children. And no matter what, the Lord's children should always be forgiven. And I hope that he finds his way to the holy gates one day. And I hope he does. I really do. I say that from the bottom of my heart. Because he is my Father. And no matter what anybody else thinks out there, no matter what anybody else says, my Father, I know he'll love me deep down somewhere. I know he's got some kind of love for me somewhere.
Yeah.
And at least I think that to myself. Because it don't give him the satisfaction of me saying that he don't.
Mm.
It don't give him the satisfaction and the right to gloat that he's gotten into my head, because he hasn't.
Mm.
There's only one man in this world that can get in my head, and that's the Lord.
Mm.
And the Lord
Amen.
is the only one that can steer me in the right way.
Mm.
There's and people that have shown me signs of learning how to forgive. If you don't mind me mentioning their names,
Yes,
is
please do.
Tracy, Fann, and Keith Fry. That is my aunt and uncle, and they stepped into my life when nobody else would. Now, don't get me wrong, my mom and my stepfather before my father was there for me by my side. My uncle and my stepfather was there by my side before my sperm donor was there.
Mm.
They gave me what I needed to get through the incarceration. They gave me the hope. And you know, as long as I knew I had them by my side, I never did once let my head swing down.
Mm.
Don't get me wrong, I got a little sad every now and again, but you know what? I'd look back and I would remember something they told me in the past, that if you keep on going down this road, this is where you're going to wind up. And you know, I will smile at it, not in laughter,
Mm-hmm.
but I will smile in it like, how did you know this? How did you know this? And that's why I live my life now as a God-fearing man, because he touched me in there. And that's when he really touched me, because I know if he was going to protect me anywhere, that was the one place it was going to be hardest for him to protect me. And he protected me in there.
Mm.
He did not let harm come to me. He gave me the power to stand back up against my enemies. He gave me the power to be knocked down, but to be able to come up above being knocked down, because most people, when they go down, they don't come back up. I came back up and I held my head high, no matter how many people told me how many years I was looking at in prison. No matter how many people tried to tell me that I wasn't getting out. I kept praying, and 3 months came along.
Mm.
And that last day, I was supposed to have my court hearing on the 27th. And this guy told me, he grabbed me by my arms that day. He grabbed my hands. He slid his hands down my arms to my hands. And he prayed with me. He prayed for me to go home with him that day. And he said, above anything else, if I cannot go home this day, he said, if he cannot go home this day and I am, he's like, please swap places with us. Allow me to stay here 2 months longer.
Mm.
I was supposed to have court 6 days later. But my court came 6 days earlier. And I left when that man was supposed to leave.
Mm.
So whenever I got back to the cell that day, or that evening after court, I came back and he just smiled. He wasn't sad that he had to spend longer time. He smiled. And he looked at me and he said, just always remember the Lord is real. And I mean, this is a guy that used to be part of an actual gang. He was an actual gang member, and it's a miracle that God could speak through him to me. God spoke through him to me. He held me together. He was in jail with me for the last month that I was in there. And he helped me through every step of that last month. If it wasn't for him, my head probably would have swung down and I probably would have let it get to me. But I thank God sent him in there whenever he seen that it was getting too tough for me. I think he sent that man in there. And it was very great because another man that I had spent a while in there with, he was in there before I came in. And me and him gets to talking, and our lives are so much similar to each other's. Our lives are like, it's so similar that it's scary. It's like we almost live the exact life. The only thing between mine and his difference was he was not sexually abused like I was. That's the only difference between me and him. But I think in that situation, me and him were an inspiration to each other. And I believe that's all somebody looks for, is they need somebody to inspire them and to have a story similar to theirs so that they can get up and stand up against what they're facing, what battle they're facing, they can win and overcome. And basically all I'm saying is don't give up. The Lord is out there, and he will be there for you every step of the way, even through your hardest moments. So
Wow, that's beautiful.
there's always somebody out there for you.
Yeah, that's, wow, Billy, you've blessed us.
Thank you.
The word inspire comes from being in spirit. You were created in spirit. When God said, let us make man after our image and likeness, and he blew into the nostrils of man and he became a living soul. We carry the breath of God. We're just grateful that you breathed on us today and allowed the Spirit of God to move. I'm always just reminded, something just kept pulling on my heart. The word says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same in the beginning was with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life. In him was life. In him was life. And the life shined upon men, and the darkness comprehended it not. And it is the light that lights us up. It's the Spirit that gives us life that's inside of us. And you shared that today powerfully, man. I'm telling you, you've blessed us. You've inspired us. You've encouraged us.
Thank you.
You've showed us how to walk in forgiveness. You've showed us how to walk in love. It's amazing, man. God has such a wonderful purpose inside of you. Last word of encouragement.
It wasn't me that was saying all those things. That was the Lord speaking through me at times to spread the word. He spreads his word through me, and I'm happy for that.
To be a vessel for God.
Yes, sir.
Wow, man. Awesome.
Yes, sir. Thank
Stay
you.
focused. Wow. Man. Glory. Awesome, man.